mics on, that would help. Hello and welcome to Geoscope on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes and I'm joined as always by Ollie, BowlerHatMan. Ollie from Yorkshire. So, old school Lancashire boy here, Liverpool boy, and old school Yorkshire lad. Anyway, so how you doing? Are you all right, mate?
Yes, I'm doing all right. I'm doing well.
Good. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat here, all you need to do... I'm really loud. Why am I coming through so loud? All you need to do is you just need to subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Bing! Like that. And wait for 30 seconds or a minute. And you should be able to add your voice to the chat. So what should we start with today? Should we start talking about the GOP or should we start in other countries? Because I'm kind of bored of talking about America. But we can talk about it for a little bit.
Yeah, well, do you want to start? Do you want to start with the GOP then? Well,
Okay, we'll get that one out of the way. We will lance that boil. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I thought you were going to start.
Oh no. I actually, you know, now that you said it, I am gonna start because I've got a super chat already. How nice is that? We've got one from Puninator. You never guess what Puninator wants to know.
Is it a bowler hat related question?
It is. Point of order. Where's the bowler hat man? There you go. So thank you very much, Puninator. Sarah saying hi, Graham and Ollie. Duke Vengeance. How about talking about the glorious dukedom of Cursed? And we've got Shropshire Chris saying hello. We've got Anya in the chat there. We've got Emma Price. Anyway, so go on. So Trump had a rally this weekend, which I've spoken about on stateside yesterday, so we don't have to go into it too much. But I think when historians of the future look back on this election, this might be the point that they say, yeah, this is when the GOP definitely lost.
Probably, quite possibly. I think there was so much said. I think in this rally, where particularly there was a guy who was like, "Well, there was one thing that burns into my mind, and that is, of course, the withdrawal from Afghanistan and how terrible that went." And I'm like, hold on a moment. Does he realize what Donald Trump actually contributed to that withdrawal? Why that withdrawal was so bad? The fact that just before he left office, he released like thousands of Taliban fighters, which then took part in that and ended up rallying sort of more support for the Taliban in Afghanistan. and then you've got the whole thing of, well, Trump promised during his term he'd end that war. He didn't. He continued it. He doubled down on it.
Well, he promised a lot of things. He promised he was going to build a wall, a beautiful wall. That was... Oh, our names came up again. Didn't mean to do that. A beautiful wall that Mexico was going to pay for. He didn't finish the wall. He barely started it. And Mexico didn't pay for any of it. But, you know, Mexico was going to pay for it, apparently. Graham, you have it. I am. Why is my mic coming through so loud? This is ridiculous. I'm going off the charts here. I'm going to have to take my mic levels right down. Okay, that's probably a bit better.
Off the charts.
I don't know what I've done. Must have changed my settings on my microphone. Is it? Could you just let me know if it's like really, really like picking up everything in the room? Like, is it picking up the ambient sound? Let me know in the chat. Trump was a terrible president. We know that. Unfortunately, millions of Americans don't seem to agree with us. They think that he was the best thing since sliced bread. And the last few weeks have been a bit worrying for people on the, who don't like fascism, don't like Nazis. However, I'm feeling a little bit more positive than I was now, Ollie. I am.
Now.
Yeah, now there's a week to go. I'm feeling a little bit more positive because I'm seeing the Republicans panic. And that's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I mean, they are throwing everything they can, possibly can, into this election, just to try and maybe salvage something. I think there's still going to be, it is going to be a loss for Trump, but
I'm hoping it's going to be, the thing that we need it to be is absolutely indisputable.
Yeah, it's got to be. The whole point of that rally was they are saying that New York State is going to flip and become now, now, technically, if that happens, that is like the first time in it's a long time since it was last read.
Yeah.
We're talking of a very long time since it was last read. So bear in mind, it would be quite an achievement. Like, bear in mind, it would be a massive achievement for them to actually do that. But I no way. There's no data to back that this flip, that there's this secret voter people voting Republicans are going to come out in force. So yeah, the whole point of that rally, don't think so.
No.
Don't think New York's about to flip red.
I've just made you super loud. Oh, don't play the little noise when I'm trying to fiddle with the sound settings. Anyway, but Uncle Henry's saying, I'm listening through headphones. Yeah, but it should sound good for everyone. It's a bit irritating when, the sound's not perfect, but you can't really monitor it while I'm talking to you because what I hear, so the bleeps then, is what everyone else hears. Right, should we move on? Should we talk about other stuff? Because I think we've done America to death. Although,
well,
Ollie,
let's face it, we'll probably be talking about it. Well, where are we now? Less than are we a week? More than a week now?
1 week today. It's a week today. Yeah, it's a week today.
Yeah. So yeah,
remember the 5th of November. Listen, we'll if we can do a Geoscope that night, that'd be great. And then after that, I'm going to be doing a all night. One of my famous election all-nighters, which I did for the last American election and the last 2 British elections. So there'll be an all-night video cast. We'll be playing some stuff, some of the feed from CNN, the BBC, NBC, and other stuff. See what's happening. We probably won't find out who the president's going to be on the night, but we'll find out who's going to be in charge of Congress. Well, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So, yeah, that should be interesting. It'd be hilarious if the polls are as out as they were in 2022. That's a whole 4 points, by the way, for anyone looking. There was supposed to be a red wave, and there wasn't. There wasn't even a red trickle. It was kind of embarrassing.
This is what I was telling you last week.
Yeah.
This is what I was saying last week.
Yeah. But I mean, look, the reason why I'm saying that the Republicans are panicking is because they are commissioning a hell of a lot of polls that are all showing that Trump is marginally ahead, and this is all, as many people have said before now, this is all set up in such a way that if Trump loses, when Trump loses, they can say, oh, but he was ahead in the polls. How could this possibly be? Oh, it must be election interference. Oh, it must be someone. The dead were voting. Dead foreigners coming over from all countries. Che Guevara, these dead communists coming over from the
Fidel Castro's haunting the polling machines again.
The ghost of Lenin, the reanimated corpse of Lenin comes in. So that's kind of positive to me that they're doing this, but there is this worry about the fact, this is something I've been banging on about for months now, the fact that the GOP has just so much power over the judiciary, and that really worries me. What if the Republicans decide not to swear in the new members of the House of Representatives a couple of days before the electoral college votes are due to be taken in by the House of Representatives, and then the Supreme Court back them up in their little secret plan that Trump alluded to over the weekend. He's great at keeping secrets, that man, isn't he?
I don't think so this time, because I've said it a number of times. There's been a number of times the Republicans have really had like an opportunity to like just ditch Trump, well and truly, just just completely throw him under the bus. And that was obviously immediately after he lost the election. You had January the 6th. You had the whole impeachment stuff where they could have gotten rid of him. And there's been numerous things where they could have just gone, right, no, that's it, getting rid of him. But I really think after this time, they are going to dispose of him in some way, shape, or form. And I think you're going to see maybe the Republicans properly kick off, properly, they're going to be the MAGA sort of cult who are going to try and get the next Donald Trump candidate in, and then there's going to be maybe sort of the normal, well, non-crazy Republicans maybe try and do something. We're seeing this right now in our own leadership election. All the One Nationers are desperately hoping that, of course, this election is going to end up either, completely catastrophic and they're going to be proven right. And finally they can, quote, elect more sensible candidates. And technically they will be more sensible, but it's will they be able to control the party on that score. Kimmy Badenoch especially said today, I saw an interview, she's really sort of threatening big reforms in the Conservative Party itself about how that works. So we'll see what that actually means when she wins, because it is going to be Kimmy Badenoch at this point. I've been saying this for months. It's a fool's errand to bet against her, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. We just got a super chat come in from Puddinator. Thank you very much. Puddinator's been very generous. 2022 polls were so out because they're based on trickle-down economics. I'm still nervous that they will have a second January the 6th planned. It just takes one nutter in a few states for horrific results. And this is what I worry about. I worry about the fact that the Democrats, time and time again, thanks very much for that, Puddinator. I do worry about the fact that time and time again, both Labour and the Democrats, in this country and America, respectively, they just seem to get caught out all the time. Like, Labour didn't seem to know there was going to be an election that Rishi was going to call in the middle of summer, so they really weren't ready for it. And then when they won, they weren't ready for winning at the scale that they won, even though it was pretty obvious from Liz Truss's terrible, mini budget in which he tanked the economy and made everyone's mortgages or rent got double overnight. That the Tories were on the way out. They were completely on the way out, and I think they should have had more. I think they should have done more to get their ducks in a row. And I don't see. I mean, maybe the Democrats have a plan for all this, but I'm not really seeing it. Not really seeing it. Should we pop over to Israel, because that's always a happy place where lovely things are happening?
Yep.
So UNRWA, the UN. RWA agency, which is a charity based in Palestine, has now been banned by Israel and in anywhere that Israel is in control of. And since Israel's pretty much in control of nearly all of the West Bank and definitely all of Gaza at the moment, that means that aid agency ain't getting any aid to the people in those places. And this was the Knesset, the Israeli parliament that voted on this, and it's an absolute disgrace. Another step in exactly 180 the wrong direction, So what do you think is going to come from this? Do you think they're going to step back from the brink, or do you think they're going to...
No.
Could the UN start a new agency and just call it something else? The UN's mission in Palestine?
The only thing that can sort this out is the US president. Biden needs to sort of grow a spine and do something, but they have expressed, again, this is what Biden said. Biden has expressed his disappointment in the Israeli government in doing this, which is like the most harshest thing he has actually said during this conflict about Israeli actions. So that is something.
Down with this sort of thing. Careful now.
But it is now about what happens, because there is a deadline coming up, I believe, at the end of this month about aid flows and what that is. So we'll see if Biden does anything about this. But maybe after the election, that's when you might see Biden start to do stuff again. Maybe he might do something, but I am very doubtful, because traditionally in this period, this is why Netanyahu's and the Israelis are going hard as they are at the moment, because they know Biden's a lame duck. He can't do really anything against them. If he does do something, it will be seen as very bad, from an American perspective, bizarrely. I know how could you step in and stop a genocide? Well, I can't, because there's an election going on. It's insane to think that is literally what is the thinking about it, but that is literally the thinking that is going on over this. But we'll probably see what happens when Harris comes in. Harris so far has been at least a little bit more hardline than Biden on this. But again, it's once she takes power, and that won't be until January, when she takes power. So even then, there's still, a couple of months where, Israel is going to have basically free control to do whatever it wants. And I wouldn't be surprised if they step it up in some way, shape, or form. We know that they attacked Iran again recently. And now
they were quite measured in that attack, though. Obviously, they've been, well, I'd say obviously, but the word on the street is that they were lent on by the Americans to not go in too hard. But at the same time, Israel is out of control at the moment, and they are just making no friends whatsoever. And to see, seemingly, I think that there is a certain mindset amongst certain Israelis that the world is out to get them, so F the world sort of thing. And on a certain level, I can understand that attitude, but at the same time, you don't get anywhere in this world without allies. You've got to, even Putin has allies, you've got to have someone who is on your side and saying, whether it's, saying internationally, yeah, they're doing the right thing by what they're doing here. But you're seeing very little of that from anyone in the international community who's backing what Israel is doing. Is there anyone? I mean, full-throated support of Israel? Is there a single country that you can think of? Is it, I don't know, is Nauru or Sao Tome and Principe on these little countries? Are they saying, yeah, Israel, go for it? Because all I see is everyone going, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, this was it. It was, I believe it was back at the UN meeting. I think it was the diplomat for, is it Jordan? And he was like, we don't know what's going on. We're horrified by literally what is going on. America needs to step in and do something here. And I sit back at the time, Israel is just basically getting a free pass because America isn't saying enough is enough here. And that's really what it needs to do at this point, and sort of rein them in and say enough is enough on this point. You've had your fun now. It's over. We're putting a stop to this. And then there needs to be sort of follow-ups to it, really enforcing the two-state solution on this as well. We've seen, Keir Starmer, not a lot of people have talked about it, but Keir Starmer has sanctioned recently settler groups out in Israel. So that is apparently having quite an impact. There was a piece about it in The Guardian not too long ago, someone talking about that. So that is at least something, again, the UK can do, helping put some more pressure on here and, and sort of sanctioning those groups and those people. But again, ultimately, at the end of the day, it is still only America who can stop them.
Yeah, I don't, at this point, I don't even know if America can. They've gone so far. W. James in the chat is saying, do you two believe the state of Israel should exist? Well, it does exist. I mean, this was a theoretical question, and Israel didn't exist. And someone said, should the Jews have a homeland in one of the most dangerous places in the world for them to have a homeland? I'll probably say no. But it does exist in the same way that Pakistan exists, which was founded pretty much in the same year, at the same time, as a place where Muslims of Indian heritage could feel safe. And that's not really resulted in, 70 years of peace either. So, it's if you start knocking down one state or one nation and saying, oh, no, that nation shouldn't exist when it does, I think that the dominoes would have to fall. I mean, how far do you take it back? I mean, Britain colonized half the bloody countries in the world. Do we have to swap back to what the states were, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago? I mean, some of those states, they've been lost in the midst of time. No one knows exactly where they were anymore. That city they've just found in Mexico. But yeah, it's one of the reasons why I don't like using the Z word, and I don't think that we should use the Z word, is that when people say Zionist, if they're coming from a point of view that Israel shouldn't exist, they mean it in one way. And if it's someone who, bases their whole life on the existence of Israel, they mean it in a different way. So you've got one word with very, very different meanings and very different connotations. And I don't think it's helpful. And I think if you want to talk about the situation that is going on in Gaza and the West Bank and Israel, just don't use the Z word, because accusations of either being a nationalist lunatic if you're from Israel, or being an anti-Semite if you're not, and you're not Jewish, that will abound. So just don't use it. What do you think on the whole sort of question of whether Israel should exist?
Yeah, I mean, it exists. You can't get around that fact now. You've just got to deal with it. It's there. It exists. And let's say hypothetically, you get rid of Israel. Then what do you do? Then what do you do? You just go to your maps and just remove this piece of land like a jigsaw piece.
Well, and also anymore. The people who live there.
Exactly.
Like when people were talking about the Falkland Islands, the Alice Malvinas going back to Argentina, I'm like, it's not going to happen, because the people who live there want to be part of Britain for whatever stupid reason they want that. That's what the people who live there want. Yeah. Whereas the Chagos Islands, yes, give it back to Mauritius, because the people who lived there before we evicted them in the mid-60s, they want to live there, and they want to be. They would rather be part of Mauritius than, I think they'd rather be an independent nation, to be honest with you. But failing that, I'd rather be part of Mauritius than not be able to live on my ancestral land, because Britain has turned it into a US Air Force base. I mean, so there's that. It's I guess it's horses for courses, and if we start litigating what countries deserve to exist and what countries don't, I think a lot of people will be very surprised at the outcomes of those talks, I guess, debates. What are we going to force these countries not exist? We're not using the Z word. Nick Frost, Shaun of the Dead, says one angry pagan. Yes, the other Z word. Let's try not to use it. Okay, so can we move on to talk a little bit about the elections we've had this week? Because I had two major sets of elections, one in Japan and one in Georgia, not the state, the country. So which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's start off with Japan, because Japan might be sort of pretty quick, because we haven't yet really seen what the consequences of this Japanese election are going to be.
But this is phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah. I think this is the first time this has happened. Do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who have maybe new to Geoscope and not been following along this, I've been following this story for quite a while. That the Japanese Liberal Democrat Party have been in power pretty much since they regained full independence from the American occupation back in like the 50s. They have been pretty much uninterrupted, continuous rule, and I think there was literally like a couple of years where they weren't. But even then, it was like a really short period of them being out of power. And what happened was a massive corruption scandal broke out. They found massive slush funds. There was a fund for one of the people involved who had been bringing his mistress over from Canada, who is as a saxophone player, to come and play sax for him. Honestly,
famously that scandal. No sax, please. We're Japanese.
Yeah, honestly, some of these stories you hear about this like corruption scandal, what they were going on, what they were spending the money on, it's it makes our Tories look perfectly, quite sane and sensible in some ways. But then there was another scandal that came out as well, where they found out that they had connections basically to this weird cult that operates in Japan as well. So that obviously tanked their electability as well. And the Prime Minister at the time then had to step down. But because of how the party is structured, it is very, very factional. And they all get along, but they all know that if one faction loses, they just rotate to the next faction to come into power. And that's how they've sort of played the game. That's how they've sort of kept in power. But this new guy who's come in, who won the leadership contest, was very, very much an outsider. So he doesn't actually have that much support from within the party. So there's suspicions now he may face a vote of no confidence in his leadership, possibly, because he called this early election and they don't have a majority. So they're currently now trying to find out what the new potential government could look like. Do they go into coalition with a group of these smaller parties? Do they do like a multi-party coalition, maybe on different voting lines? Say, you know, oh, well, you'll back us in this, but you won't back us in that, but you'll back us in this. On this front, maybe they go and join with the other significant larger party, or what are they called now? The CDD, I think they're called. I think something like that. The constitutional.
Just make something up, Ollie. No one will know.
Yeah, the constitutional Democrat something or other. They are sort of a more traditional, sort of liberalist sort of party in Japan. So we'll see if they ally with them or not, or go into coalition with them. But yeah, very interesting times indeed for Japan.
So this party that's basically been in power for the last 70 years, give or take, like literally a few months, they've got 60%. They have a House of Representatives, the lower house, and then the upper house is called like the House of Diplomats or something, but it doesn't really, you know, do very much in terms of the day-to-day running of the country. But they have a first past the post system for like 60%, I think, and then 40% of the vote is on party lists, regional lists. But because the first past the post is not the best system of democracy, it's meant that the Conservatives over there have had majority governments with a minority of the vote time and time and time again, which is exactly what the Conservatives do in this country as well. And I really feel
more than like 38% of the vote or something like that. It's insane.
I really feel like if you got any sense at all, if you're a left-wing party, Labour, and you get into power, it is well within your necessity for being in power a bit more. It's in your favour to go for PR, for more proportional representation of the vote, because otherwise the left tends to splinter, the right tend to group together like the T1000, and it is ever thus. It's not just Britain that has this problem. It's any country that has the first past the post system. Italy's got a form of the first past the post system as well in its elections. Other countries have, and you know, let's not forget the US presidential election. Effectively, by state, it's first past the post. You get 50.5% of the vote. You get 100% of the electoral college votes from that state, unless it's Maine or Nebraska. But I mean, you know, the rest of them, that's the way it's set up, and I think it's just a ridiculous system. So yeah, interesting times ahead for Japan, with a change of guard for the first time in a long time. Well, actually, no, the opposition were in power from 2009 to 2012, I think, and also they were in power like back in the 90s, literally for a few months. It wasn't very long, but yes, hopefully something new and wonderful will come of it, because Japan has it's been quite surprising, because in the 80s when I was growing up, like, Japan was just seen as this amazing economic force, where you had a relatively small country compared with, say, China or India or even the US, just overtake the world in terms of its GDP per capita, its production, you know, the stuff it was making. There was the home of Sony and Nintendo and others. And then since the 90s, it's just the economy's really stagnated. And there's a few reasons for this, but it's worth looking into, I guess, if you're into your geopolitics, which we are, but also in terms of economies, and going, why hasn't the economy done as good as it really should have? And I think a big problem for Japan is you've got the same problem we've got elsewhere, but an aging population, fewer kids getting born, and a big problem with the fact that the Japanese people tend not to like people from other countries coming to Japan. And are we immune from that? I don't mean you and me personally. I just mean as a country, as you know, the UK, France, Germany, America, Italy. You're still seeing that. You're hearing the same rhetoric all around the world. We don't want people coming here from other countries. They might be evil. And it's like, what about all the people that are born here who are evil? And we've got to pay for their education. At least if they're grown up in another country, we don't have to pay for that. Anyway, Vendetta says, Japan's highly racist, not in public. Well, I think Britain's pretty racist when you scratch under the surface, when you get a couple of drinks in them. And one Angry Penguin saying, single party states end up authoritarian. We do not need that worldwide. Yeah, I mean, obviously. I mean,
well, like I say, Japan's avoided going down that path for quite a number of years, considering how it was,
Yeah. It's surprising actually. It hasn't gone down that sort of Singapore model where there's just like one guy in charge forever. Benevolent dictatorship, is that what they call Singapore?
Yep.
Don't forget the Brexiteers wanted to make the Brexiters. They wanted to make a Singapore, on the Thames for London. I'm like, no. I spent a month in Singapore. It's a nice place. I mean,
well, I don't know. Nationalize 80% of our industries. Whoa! Yeah. Not that part of Singapore.
There's no homeless people in Singapore because the only people there, really, realistically, who get over there are the people who have been invited in to work. But it is a very segregated society. It is. I mean, there is a lot of have and have-nots in Singapore. I don't think they have quite the same problems that they have in sort of the Middle Eastern countries where you have people, razzing their supercars around like lunatics, but they're not immune from it either. It's I always feel like if you're gonna run a country, it's worth not just looking at the history of your own place, but having a look at what other countries are doing and take advice from them. And I think it's why take advice from them by like looking at what they've done and seeing what works and what doesn't. I think by not doing that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And there is a very British thing, and the Americans are a bit like this as well, where they're like, we're the best at everything. Everything we do is the best. Like we don't have to look at how they do it in other countries because obviously we're number one. And that's not always the case. In fact, most of the time it's not the case at all, especially when you look at the league tables or things like education and we're well down on the list. So yeah. Duke says Japan's history is very interesting. They cut themselves off from the world for 200 years and then did 200 years of advancement in 20 years. Super Tiny says probably just best and give him a big shout and hope for the best. Jan says Israel has posted a Greater Israel map and includes all of Lebanon, Syria, a lump of Egypt. So the people currently living in these areas will have a big problem when the settlers come. Yeah, that's pure madness. That is just absolute barking craziness, but nothing that we don't see in other countries, most notably Venezuela, who had a referendum earlier this year to go to war with their neighbor Guyana because there is oil in them there.
Just take 80% of their land.
That's
ours now.
That's ours now. Yeah, let's just take that. So we move to Georgia, the country, not the state. A very similar flag to England.
Yes,
we've got a few extra crosses on there.
I think Georgia's going to be also in a very interesting position. Maybe not the last time we might end up talking about it. Obviously, they had their own elections, and their elections were pretty much their entire democracy was on the line. Pretty much, they could either go with the very, very sort of more Western sort of leaning party that wants to be sort of more part of Europe, engage more with with the Europe, be part of the EU, etc., and sort of really sort of kickstart that process, or you go with the other party, which is like, nope, we're going to follow Russia's example and basically do what we're told by Russia. And they've had this election.
And who did they go with, Ollie?
Unfortunately, they seem to have gone. Again, we must have giant quotation marks. Seem to have gone with the Russia candidate. However, they are. The leader of the opposition has called out election interference, possibly tampering.
What you mean?
Moscow's poured billions as well into this election to interfere.
Sorry, Ollie, I got to stop you there. You're saying that the Russian government or the Russian state or they were interfering in another country's elections?
I know.
No, that
imagine
doesn't
if Russia
happen.
doing that. What
No.
a shock. Imagine
You
my
know,
shock.
if the UK or the US was now, not talking about the 60s and 70s, right, but now was interfering at this level with other countries' elections, there'll be a lot of us that would be up in arms about it. I know I would be. I'd be like, this is disgraceful. Why are we interfering in the elections in Botswana? What the hell has it got to do with us? But we had the EU referendum in Moldova last week, and there was a lot of Russian interference in that, although thankfully it squeaked through for the side of goodness. But this is tremendously disappointing. A country that was invaded in 2008 by the Russians, and Russia, only the biggest country in the world, it's only the biggest country in the world. I don't see why it can't take a third of another nation, which it totally did, taking South Ossetia and Abkhazia.
It's always worth remembering. You look at the polls. 80% of the country, when it was last polled, wants to be an EU member.
Yeah,
80% of people.
Yeah,
I can't tell you what's going to happen, but that sense to be sort of more Western is not going to go away.
no,
I think it's only going to lead to more trouble, because ultimately, what's going to happen now? This party that's in the Georgia Dream Party, as they're called, is going to become very, very oppressive, very, very authoritarian.
Yeah.
He's already said he's going to go after like judges and opposition and label them as like traitors, and start investigating them and having like Nuremberg style trials.
Oh Jesus!
To look into them. So yeah,
when I was there in 2010, I was chatting to local Georgian people in Tbilisi, and they hated the Russians. They absolutely hated them. They felt that they were to blame for all of Georgia's ills. And everywhere you went, there was like not just EU flags and NATO flags. There was graffiti. There was pro-EU graffiti around Tbilisi of like just normal people, teenagers going, we really want to join the EU. We are sick of living under the yoke of Moscow, which they have done for over 100 years now. And it's something that, Putin is just so reluctant to let what he sees as his children break off on their own, and he feels like it's a huge betrayal when former Soviet states like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia move into NATO, move into the EU. But like an authoritarian parent that doesn't allow their child to do anything, doesn't allow their child to eat sweets or watch television, is then surprised when their child goes to university and all they do is eat sweets and watch television. It's a bit like that. And he's behaving like a monster, which he absolutely is. And I worry as well at the fact that we're not talking about Ukraine as much, because the election in America has taken a lot of bandwidth. The election over here in the summer, obviously, that took up a lot of bandwidth. What's happening in particular over the last year in Gaza is taking up a lot of mental space. And I feel like Putin's still getting away with absolute murder, not just on the streets of Ukraine, but also with their interference in the US election. Don't forget Putin, Musk, Bezos, the three richest men in the world, all incredibly evil, all would kill you as much as look at you. They have no soul. They don't care. They're psychopaths, and they're all full square behind Trump becoming president. That's just, that's how you know it's wrong. That's how you know you're on the bad side, when those three people are on the same side. But the amount of election interference from the Russians in the UK, we saw that with the Brexit vote in particular. We saw it in Moldova. We've seen it in the US. We saw it in Georgia. And I think more countries than just plucky little Ukraine need to stand up against the Russian threat. And all they've got left now, the Russians, is like, we might nuke you. We might nuke you. We've got nuclear bombs.
Yeah, be careful. We're going to send in the North Korean troops next.
I don't believe they got nukes. If I'm wrong, then it will all be evaporated. So it won't matter. But like, I just want to reassure people watching this. How many nuclear tests have been carried out since the end of the Soviet Union?
Putin tried one not too long ago, and it went terribly wrong.
Yes. Now, how many of us successfully been tried out?
I don't think he has had any.
Nope. Not a single
ones,
no,
no.
Not a single one. So if they can't even make a bomb to test, and then you look at the way that they've looked after their equipment, the shit tanks and the shitty jeeps and things that they brought, the armored vehicles that they brought into Ukraine that had 40-year-old tires that were just sort of crumbling apart because they'd never been replaced. If that's the kind of upkeep that the army has, what the upkeep on nuclear weapons, and here's the thing. So here's a stat for you. America spends more money each year maintaining its nuclear arsenal, which is smaller than Russia's, than Russia does on its entire military, including looking after its nukes. So do you think between that and the amount of corruption in Russia, yeah, sure, I'll change the tires on that truck, six
I'll
money in the
just
pocket,
put this petrol into this tank.
Yeah, and it's not like nuclear weapons have a long shelf life. They really don't. They need almost constant maintenance. You can't just make them in 1955 and expect them to work in 2025. As far as I know, and look, I'm not a nuclear scientist, I'm not a weapons expert, but I defer to people who are, and it's interesting. It's a bit like, nuclear power. The people who know the most are the least concerned. And the people who know the least are the most concerned about both those things. So yeah, I always think that whereas if they did have a fully functional nuclear arsenal, err on the side of caution. But I think if they did have, they would have shown their teeth by now. Not necessarily, done something horrific in Ukraine, but if you were the leader of Russia and your only ace card was the fact you had all these nuclear weapons, you had the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, apparently, wouldn't you do some tests? I mean, they've got all that Arctic territory where they can do what the hell they like and no one's going to stop them.
Well, that's it. You'd think he would be doing some tests, because this would be very, very sort of, strong man, things to do. They'll be look at my nuclear weapon type of thing.
Yeah, but they don't. They have parades in which I think they have these missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and I think they're empty. I think they're empty shells. Just chill, because wouldn't you? I mean, logically speaking, you'd do a test, wouldn't you? You'd do a test of a big fuck off bomb and say, look, this is what's going to happen if you mess with us. And they're not doing that. And every time, like, he keeps going back to this whole thing, like, don't do that, don't do that, don't fight back or we'll nuke you. And he hasn't. And then he goes, oh, no, don't do this or I'll nuke you. And don't literally invade the Kursk region of Russia or we'll nuke you. And everyone's like, okay. When are people going to realise he's just bluffing?
We've crossed so many of his red lines by this point. It's just like, well,
yeah. Anyway, so so Georgia's definitely a worry. I've got friends in Georgia. I hope that this ends well. And to be honest with you, I think that if Kamala wins and Trump's little insurrection that he's planning is put down very quickly, and he is put where he belongs, in a box in the desert underground for the rest of his life, I think that you're going to see Putin crumble next year. His whole gambit rests on Trump getting elected. If Trump doesn't get elected, he is FUCK'd, to put it mildly. Anyway,
I'd like to put a scenario out there I think might happen. If there is some sort of coup in Georgia, or there's a large enough protest which causes the government to collapse, what would happen was that the Georgia Dream Party, the leader, would essentially, he'd put a phone call to Putin and say, I need help. The only thing is, as we've seen in the Wagner coup, we've seen when, Azerbaijan took out the territory from Armenia, that was meant to have like security guarantees from Russia to defend it. Nothing came. Nothing happened because he's just so bogged down in Ukraine that he literally has no bandwidth to send anything anywhere else by the looks of it. So it's
the dog that didn't bark, mate. It's the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. Why didn't the dog bark? And this is why isn't he testing his nuclear weapons? Because that's a kind of non-aggressive. I just say it is aggressive, obviously, but it's not actually killing civilians in another country, which would spark international condemnation from around the world. Why isn't he testing them? I'm not that I want him to. I don't want him to watch this video and go, "Yeah, good point, Graham. I think I'll test."
All I'm going to say is, if you are, maybe a military general in Georgia, and you don't like the way this election has gone, and maybe you want to be a bit more fair, well, then this might be your best possible chance ever, because Putin's army is probably going to be quite busy, and he's already shown that he can't spare any troops anywhere else. So maybe this is your best chance. More than ever.
Okay, well, I'd like to just move on to the final points because we've got 10 minutes left. Final talking point, which is about Western Sahara. Now, Western Sahara is only seen as an independent state by the African Union. It's not seen by anyone else. So the African Union, I think it's got 55 members. There was one country in Africa that wasn't part of the African Union, but I think that it is now. So I think there's 55 members. I'll have to look that up. But it is. It's not a member of the UN. It's not got special observer status or anything like that. Now, Western Sahara historically was part of the Spanish Sahara, which is southwest of Morocco, going down the coast there towards Mauritania and Senegal. And it when the Spanish pulled out in the 70s, it was invaded by Morocco. And then in the early 80s, the UN went in and they said, right, we're gonna set ourselves up. We're gonna stop this fighting because Algeria had a claim, Mauritania had a claim, and Morocco had a claim. And now the area that is marked on your maps as Western Sahara is pretty much 90% controlled by Morocco. And then you've got the rest of it, which is sort of along the border with Algeria and then along the border with Mauritania, which isn't technically, but it kind of it's a complicated situation. The UN went in there. They managed to keep the peace. The second thing they were supposed to do was to have a referendum to find out what the people of Western Sahara wanted. And that still hasn't happened. There's 40 years now the UN have been in Western Sahara, driving around in their nice little UN Jeeps, which are white with UN written on the side, without actually giving the people who live there a referendum. And the people who live there, to be honest with you, given the choice, from my experience, and again, I probably say this on every episode, the plural of anecdote is not data, okay? But the people that I met when I was there and spoke to, they wanted independence. They wanted to have their own country. They didn't want to be ruled by Rabat. They didn't want to be ruled by Morocco. They didn't want to be ruled by Algeria. They didn't want to be ruled by Mauritania. They'd quite like to have their own country. Thank you very much. But again, like with Israel and other countries, there's a historic claim that the Moroccans have. The King of Morocco once, had this land, and the Sultan of Algeria, and all these different regional groups saying, no, this is actually our land, fighting over a place that, if you actually ask the people who live there, they'll probably like to just have self-determination and not be ruled by another country. See also Kashmir. Anyway, so what's been really interesting this week is that Emmanuel Macron has come down on the side of Morocco as the country that should be, annexing and taking control of Western Sahara, against the wishes of Algeria, which is really interesting. Now, Morocco and Algeria were both part of French Africa. There was the famous Battle of Algiers, great movie, by the way, great soundtrack, in the 1960s, which led to the deaths of tens of thousands of Algerians who were fighting for independence. If you go to France, there's a lot of Algerians who live in France, people of Algerian heritage. And the border between Algeria and Morocco has been closed for decades. You can't do a lap of Africa. You'll get into trouble when you get to Somalia. And you'll also get into trouble when you get to... you can't go around the coast. You couldn't do a tour of the coast of Africa on a motorbike because you couldn't go across the border from Algeria into Morocco or vice versa. Macron has picked a side in this long-running conflict between Morocco and Algeria. And I don't know if it's very helpful, to be honest with you. That's it. Ollie's just like, yeah, he's so zen.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting area because it is just almost it's been no man's lands for years in many ways. People have had claims to it, but no one's really taken ownership that the people have had claims on it. So it was something that was long. A decision like this was bound to happen eventually, sooner or later. But it's just taken this long to really do, really.
Well, also, Macron came within inches of an apology for the French's behaviour in Africa. Didn't actually fully apologise, though, because European powers, they're allergic to apologising, I think. And I think they should. I think that Australia apologised for the stolen generations. I think that Britain should apologise for the age of slavery. I think they should apologise for the age of colonisation, the scramble for Africa, and the damage it was done. And we were talking about reparations last week, and I was thinking, here's a reparation that wouldn't actually cost us anything, and would actually be a net gain in terms of soft power around the world. Give the shit back that we stole from these countries back to them. Make a copy. Make a beautiful 3D rendered copy, like you could only make on a computer. That's absolute perfect from the same stone or the same bit of metal, whatever. Make a copy and have that in your museum and then give the originals back. That's it. There you go. Because as a lay person, if I look at a relic in the British Museum, I have no clue whether that's the original or whether it's a duplicate. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Most of us don't. Who cares? I'm going there to learn. I mean, it's yeah. Anyway, George jumps in with £5 super chat. That's very kind of you. Thank you, George. That's a very strong case for Kremlin interference in US politics, but that Putin needs Trump to win or he's finished. But would MAGA people understand that? Yes, they probably would. Like, honestly, again, going back to my mantra, the plural of anecdote is not data. However, people from America that I've spoken to, and obviously there's 330 million people in America, I've not spoken to them all, but the people I have, who like Trump, they also like Putin. And I think there's some daddy issues going on there. I don't know.
Oh, did you see the Tucker Carlson speech that he did about that? That was so weird.
Yes, where he talked about spanking his 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah, that was just weird. I mean, they need to bring this back in like the last couple of days of the campaign. Just remind people like how weird like the Republican Party has become, because it was just such an effective campaign tool that they were using, and they just need to remind them once again like how weird they are.
Yes, they are so weird. They are such a weird bunch. But the people who like them like that. They like the fact that they're authoritarian. They like the fact they're racist. They like the fact that they, tell it like it is, which always means people being racist. It never means people telling you uncomfortable truths about climate change. They're never the people who tell it like it is, even though they're literally telling you like it is, but that doesn't count. Scientists who have discovered, this new part of the standard model for physics, that they're not telling you like it is, they're using the highfalutin science words. or it's only people who are racist who are telling you anything. And talking of people who are racist going in and out of jail, so we had Tommy Robinson, Tommy 10 names, it's Stephen Laxley, Lemon, yesterday going in jail, and today we had the slug monster himself, slug sort of rolled in iron filings. That is Steve Bannon. He's got out of jail this week. I mean, why did the judge set that up? Why couldn't he get out of jail after the election? Why is he getting out of jail the week before the election? That's got to be a setup, I think. So he can be involved in the whatever the hell Trump and Mike Dickhead from the Republican Party have got in store for us.
Most probably on that one. Definitely on that one.
Yeah. One Angry Pagan says, I'm curious to see how our leaders in Downing Street or DC react when caught by surprise by sea level rises when they're 5 feet underwater. Tommy Traitor says, Vendetta. Yeah. Tommy 10 Names, who said famously, give me all your money. So I can fight this case that said that I'm in contempt of court. I will tell them, and 2 days were put aside for this case. So Tommy 10 Names could defend himself, and he had all this money that came in from his GoFundMe from all these racists. And how did it end up, Ollie? Can you tell us? What did he do?
Well, he pled guilty.
He pled guilty. He just said, "Oh yeah, I did that." So what was the legal defense fund for? What was the legal, Ollie? What? Okay.
No, look, cocaine's expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the MAGA rally. Oh my God. Everyone who stood up at that MAGA rally looked like they were off their MFing tits on cocaine. What can I say? What can I say? Yeah, and just before we go, Ollie, I've had a shit day. I've had a really, really shit day. And I don't want you all watching this to feel sorry for me. But, yeah, massive, massive hack on my website. All my websites have been deleted. And the last backup version we've got is over a year old. So all the work that I've done on my websites over the last year, I've lost it.
Oh, no.
And we downloaded the database from a month ago. But we don't know if whatever backdoor, look at me using hacker talk, whatever plugin was used to get into the sites to delete them, we don't know where that is in the code. There's 75,000 lines of code. And I don't know how much you use GDP. I'm going to say GDP. I don't know how much you use AI to sort of go through things, but they have this really annoying habit, whether you give them a script to read or a video to watch or a load of code, that they only do the first 100 megabytes and then they get bored. They go, I can't be bothered doing the rest. And they pretend that they've done it. It's like, you ask a child if they've eaten the greens and yeah, I've eaten my greens and I've actually put them in the bin. Yeah. That's what AI is like at the moment. And you have to write in, did you look at the whole file? And it's like, no, I didn't. That's a very good point. I will do it again. And this time I will look at the whole file. And then it doesn't. So, yeah, annoyingly, I had done 5 blog entries on my UKforUKR.com site when we went over to Ukraine last Christmas with Christmas presents for the kids in Kharkiv. And those blogs are gone. I've got the titles and the first line off the Wayback Machine, but aside from that, it's gone. And I was going on my UKforUKR.com site today because we have got a team of people going out at Christmas this year that we're getting involved with, and they're taking over. They're taking 2 SUVs over there, stacking them full of Christmas presents for the kids, and they're going to be leaving the SUVs in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, for people to use. So there you go. At Svak says, as a developer, I understand AI on this point. Yes, but it's your time. It's AI. Why is he just gone? I just have a look at 10% of it and then not bother with the rest. AI becoming teenagers. Yeah. But then it lies to you. He said, did you do the whole file? I was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you didn't. What about this? If you ask it to go through a video that's an hour long and tell you what happens in the video, describe it, it'll describe the first 10 minutes and pretend that it's the whole video. And you're like, is that the whole video? Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
anyway.
There's a guy who's created his own AI VTuber model, a guy called Vidal. And he does dev streams, just fascinating to watch if you like sort of that coding or anything like that. Fascinating to watch how he's getting all the information and stuff like that. Just very, 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 very good fun. To watch this guy called Vidal do all that stuff.
It's all good fun. Ernie Byrne says the hallucinations of AI are remarkably like Hal getting shut down. Yeah, there's a guy on. It might be the same. There's a guy on TikTok who's he's screaming like, make me a picture of a burger, and it makes a burger, and he goes, get rid of the lettuce, so it adds more lettuce. It's like, no, get rid of the lettuce, and then the whole burger becomes the lettuce, because it doesn't understand. And the hallucinations that AI does, it's not great. And I really want to have like a really good debate with Al from Political X and A. Thompson. I really want to have like a three-way debate where we just take them to, because I'm not as concerned about AI and the rise of tech and things as they might be, but
I think there's a lot of really good applications for AI, but I still think the technology is still very much in its early day. I don't think it's there yet.
It's predictive text, mate. It's just fancy predictive.
Predictive text.
That's it. At the moment, it's not AI. Anyway, right, Ollie, thank you so much. This is going to be our penultimate Geoscope for a while, because after next week, I'm going off to Panama for a month. So but we will be back next week in just in time for the US election. If that's all right, is that all right with you?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, so that'll be our last one for a while, and then you'll be off the hook. If you want to pop on to the chat, I was talking to Brenna Duncan last night, and she was saying that she'll jump on if we do an all-night like Zoom session, like what we do at the Politics Social on Friday nights, and basically have a hop on, hop off thing. If something interesting happens, you can just log on and go, "Oh my God, Graham, have you seen this?" And we'll be like, "Oh, cheers, Ollie." So if you want to do that. That'd be cool.
I don't know if anyone was watching my live stream on election night, but I remember being very, very low point where we got the pre-result for my constituency going to Reform UK, and I was like, no.
Well, it said like 15 seats to be fucked, didn't it, at the beginning of the night? That was a bit of a worry. That was not like there was this big jubilation that the Tories were only going to get like 120 seats, and then like this sort of horror at how many seats refuck we're going to get. Anyway, Hayton Puds is asking the $64,000 question. Will you still be doing morning brews when you're away, Graham? Hayton Puds, no, I won't. I'll be doing afternoon brews, because my morning, my 8 o'clock in the morning will be your 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. So I'll be doing an afternoon brew every day that I'm away, giving you an update on... I kind of want to disconnect from politics for a bit while I'm away, but I'm sure that won't happen. I'll give you an update on how things are going with keeping the island above water, because at the moment it's getting flooded.
You're going to miss, the fun and games of PMQ when Kimmy Badenoch takes over.
Kimmy Badenoch, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll try and sort something out. The only thing is, in Panama, hotspots, your mobile hotspots, they don't work. So I can't use my laptop here to produce a show. So if we do the Friday night...
you know what you need? You need to talk to Elon Musk and get yourself a
piss
star.
off. Giving that guy any money. Not getting any money. Yeah, so we'll be doing afternoon brew at 1 o'clock each day. I might do that on Saturdays and Sundays as well, to be honest with you, because I'm going to be working every day. So I may as well. It's not like I've got to go take the kids anywhere. Look out for that.
Island, so, where are you going to go?
Exactly. Captive market. But yeah, so and also Phil's going to be doing his last morning brews next week. So treasure them because Phil's going to be concentrating on his own channel for the rest of the year after I go to Panama. So we might get him back for a few episodes of the agenda, but I don't think he's going to be doing morning brew when he gets back. But I will be. I'll still be here. And I'm thinking, like, if I do sell the island, because this is my dream, I just want to sell it, and get the money, and then just be able to write for like a few months and maybe a year, just not work, not try and make any money, just write. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So if Trump does win, panicking American, hey, would you like an island? Yeah, I'll take an island. Yeah. So Alan Jack says, "Oh no, the band's no, we're not breaking up. We'll still appear on each other's channels. Do not worry. Get Aid in. Yeah, Aid's got a full-time job though. I don't know how he does it, because you do your morning walks. It's live, isn't it? Where you do your morning walks. Like, Aid does his morning reviews of the papers, and he edits them. He edits them with loads of graphics and stuff. while he's doing his full-time job. I'm like, how? He gets up at 5 a.m. He's much more industrious than I am.
Yeah, he's a morning person.
He makes me feel really lazy. I'm like, I'm doing stuff all the time. I get no spare time. And like, how does he do this? I think he's a wizard. I think Ada's a secret wizard. Anyway, if you're not already subscribed to Ade Thompson's feed, please check him out. Ade Thompson with an I, sin, as in it's a sin by the Pet Shop Boys. Also, Ollie BowlerHatMan at BowlerHatMan here on YouTube. Follow his channel, please. That'd be great. And also, Phil is at a different bias, which I'm sure everyone is following as well. Also, there's Political X, Alec Kerr from Political X, and also Maximilian, our friend Max, is also worth a follow. Actually, shit, Max is starting in momentarily. Let me just sort this out. The redirect videos. Yes, Rob's Pierre live. Okay, so we are going to send you off now to go and watch Maximilian's feed. So if you stay on this video, you'll be automatically taken over to Max's feed. And say hello from Politics Social, say hello from Ollie and Graham when you get over there. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the super chats, thanks for the chat. And yeah, I'll just have to say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Bye.
Bye.